like to make public? Great. Anyone else like to make public comment?
No, there's no one else raised their hand to make public comment.
Okay, well, very good. We greatly appreciate the comments of the public. That's helps inform us as we move forward. I'd like to welcome everyone again and thank you all being in attendance, and we will then proceed with the remainder of the meeting in light of this information. So very good. So shall I deliver the oral report as to our meeting? This January 17th meeting is scheduled to discuss and approve the letter from the California Board of Legal Specialization regarding the State Bar of California Board of Trustees discussion on the 5-year sunset review recommendations for sub-entities. Once approved, the letter will be submitted to the board as written public comment during their February meeting. So I believe we can then move on to the, shall we have a discussion item or should we save this for business?
We'll save that for business and move on to item 2.1.
Great. So we'll move on to approval of the December 13th, 2024 open session meeting minutes. So those have been circulated and we can review those and take a moment to review. And if there is a motion to approve, we can move towards approval.
I move to approve the minutes.
Very good. Member Reichert has moved to approve the minutes. Do we have a second? I see that. Oh, yes. I see the hand of Member Jenkins, and I hear Vice Chair Sermitis, I think, second. So we have multiple seconds there. So we may proceed to vote.
Alano? Bennett?
Approve.
Jenkins?
Approve.
Lee?
Approve.
McGlory? Ruckert?
Approve.
Sermitis?
Approve.
With 5 yeses and no yay. Sorry, the minutes are approved.
Very good. With that, I believe we may move on to the staff reports and hand over to Amy to update us on those items.
Before we do that, Leah's joined us and she has to leave at 10:30.
Oh yes, so let's make time.
All right.
Sure. And I really, I want to thank all of you for the attention that you're paying to what's going on at the broader state bar. Appreciate the time that you're putting into drafting a thoughtful response to the proposal. I wanted to join this morning. I unfortunately have a 10:30 that I can't move, mostly to be able to answer questions. We heard some come up in public comment about, what does the bar have planned next, or if CBLS is sunsetted, what is planned, and certainly would love to talk about that. I do think there are some things in your letter that need to be corrected to reflect in part what those plans are, but really just wanted to be here to answer questions. I also want to say that I really do value and appreciate the work of all of our volunteers, and I know that it can feel kind of disrespectful to see recommendations like eliminate a committee. I myself am now serving on a municipal committee and or a board, and I know that if I saw that recommendation come in, given all the hours I'm putting in on that board, it would feel a little disconcerting. That being said, just briefly to give folks some broader context, the State Bar went through a major restructure in 2018 when the legislature directed the separation of the State Bar sections from the regulatory arm of the State Bar. And at that time, there was significant debate as to where legal specialization falls. Does it fall in the trade association aspect of the old State Bar, or does it fall under the regulatory arm? There was a lot of debate. There was significant interest in transitioning the Board of Legal Specialization over to the California Lawyers Association. But at sort of the last minute, that transition was not made. And instead, legal specialization was retained in the bar with some specific expectations around how the operations of legal specialization itself would change, as well as the board. And that you saw, of course, the elimination of the advisory commissions, the professionalization of the development of the exam, moving it to a model akin to what's in place for the California bar exam, et cetera, et cetera. But there was also an expectation that we would try to see how legal specialization could better align with the mission of the state bar, particularly with respect to increasing access to legal services. There was a directive that we look at new specialties in that vein. And so in addition to sort of Board of Legal Specialization specific recommendations, we also had a global one that required us as staff to undertake a sub-entity sunset review every 5 years. That's a review of all of our committees every 5 years, drawing on the model that's in place for the executive branch committees. And a sunset really is that. It's a zero-based review of your committees. Do you continue to need this committee? Again, the intent is to align us with our pure regulatory purpose and make sure that all of the volunteers that we have doing wonderful work for us are aligned with that regulatory purpose, and that the staff and resources involved in supporting those efforts make sense or are necessary given all of the other demands on our organization. So fast forward, that 5-entity sunset review came due in 2023. As you see, we're now in the beginning of 2025, so we're well overdue in completing that review. Since that time, we have had a legislative fee bill cycle that has resulted in a funding level that requires us to reduce our headcount significantly. By 2027. We need to double our staff vacancy rate. So in addition to the context of the 5-year sub-entity review, the specific recommendations made in 2018 regarding the Board of Legal Specialization, we now have another variable or element here impacting staff's development of its recommendations, which is this understanding that our organization is going to get smaller. So the last thing I'll just say is you put all of that together and it results in the recommendations that you've seen. This is not a recommendation to eliminate legal specialization itself. You saw in our staff news, in our licensing newsletter that went out yesterday, we had in there some information about legal specialization, encouraging folks to apply to serve, as well as teeing up the new privacy certification. And we will continue to do more to advertise legal specialization to both attorneys and the public. So I want to make clear that this is not an elimination of legal specialization itself. With that, I want to stop talking and give folks an opportunity to ask any questions, if that's okay with you, Chair. I don't want to interrupt whatever process you had in mind.
Greatly appreciate you joining us. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. And yes, let me turn it over to those who may have questions. I see a hand up from Member Bennett.
I just had a quick question from our last meeting to this one. My understanding is that they were considering a maritime and admiralty, disbanding that particular specialty, not the entire CBLS. Is that correct or no?
I think a little bit different. I think
Okay.
one was the internal discussions as to specialties and a potential internal sunsetting of a particular specialty, that was admiralty and maritime. This is a different level of discussion at the Board of Trustees level as to the governance of CBLS, what that would look like going forward. So I think it's on that level is the difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, you should know. Yeah. Any other questions as we have the opportunity? Oh yes, members, co-chair Sermidas.
Leah, you mentioned some corrections in the letter, and I think the staff also has identified a few things. Is there anything in particular that you're able to point out that should be corrected to be more accurate?
Yeah, and I think this goes to the question
Oh.
of, what would come next. I think the letter refers to transitioning work to paid consultants. That is not the intention. The intention is to have staff and to some extent other sub-entities do some of the work. You also, I think your CBLS staff clarified that you already do have consultants doing some things for you, so wanted to make sure that wasn't presented as something entirely new.
Mhm.
But certainly with respect to communications and outreach, we have a fully articulated comms team that will be taking on a role in advertising to both the public and attorneys the existence of legal specialization and why it's important. So that's something that I think needs to be clarified. The other is there's some comments about no opportunity for input. That is, maybe it's not a factual misstatement, but I certainly want to reiterate here that that is not the intent and that is not reflective of how the state bar operates. We have gone to great lengths throughout the years to really expand opportunities for input and engagement. And we would expect the same here with respect to legal specialization. It came up in public comment, are we going to let legal specialists know? The answer is yes. We will send out a dedicated email to all legal specialists with the staff recommendation regarding the board well in advance of the board meeting. And there will continue to be multiple opportunities for input, including surveying existing legal specialists and attorneys more broadly about new specialties that should be developed, particularly in line with the board's directive that we focus on increasing access to legal services. So I would say those were the two things that really stood out for me is the, paid consultants and no opportunity for input. That being said, I didn't go through it with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? About 6 minutes. Yes. Yes. Member Wright.
Just very briefly, Ms. Wilson, I know it was raised in public comment regarding a request for an audit related to funds associated with the legal specialization. I don't know if this is something you're privy to or aware of, but do you know if those audits are run?
Yeah, we are required to be audited every year by independent external auditor. Those audits are published and submitted to the state legislature. I think maybe the suggestion is that all 100% of the revenue that's generated from legal specialization needs to be spent on legal specialization. That is an analysis that's been undertaken by our Office of General Counsel. And the answer to that particular question or that assertion is that is not the case. We can use revenues to support general operations of the state bar, our regulatory purpose. So this is not a restricted fund. So legal specialization revenue is audited consistent with all other state bar revenue. But the type of audit I think that was suggested has not been done. Though we do have an analysis that is published annually that does show what the legal specialization revenue is versus the expenditures, including staff related expenditures.
Understood. I suppose the nexus that was trying to be made is if it's not being utilized on specialization, it's being utilized for other state bar related activities. How does that parry with the fact that the CBLS only costs $6,000 or only has a budget of $6,000 a year compared to revenue of almost $2 million?
Well, the expense of legal specialization is not reflected solely by the cost of supporting this board. So there are many costs associated with running the program, including the staff that you see on the screen and test development and test and exam delivery. The costs are variable, right? Some years are lower. When you're developing and giving an exam, the costs are higher. So I think it would be a bit inaccurate to compare $2 million in revenue with $6,000 in direct expenses for the board. There is language there that you've seen that shows that that $6,000 does not include any staff time. The other thing that I think contextually is very important to understand is we are not picking on this board. This is a review that is happening of all of our sub-entities. Together, we continue as an organization to have nearly 300 volunteers. Many of those are associated with statutorily required bodies, like the Jenny Commission, for example, which is nearly 40 members. So when we're doing this review and looking at the analysis of cost and staff time that we are spending, we're looking at this in the aggregate. So I completely understand your perspective might be this isn't very much money and it's not very much time, but we are doing a comprehensive review. And when you add all these things up, you do start to get to 1.5, 2 FTEs that we would save looking across all of our recommendations for eliminating or streamlining various committees that exist. And that's significant given our directive to reduce our headcount overall.
Understood. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. We have a short 2 minutes left with our executive director. Any other questions? Well, great, seeing no hands up. I greatly appreciate our executive director joining us this morning. Thank you very much. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments, I believe we can proceed into the staff report from Amy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here, Leah. So I just want to give you a sense of what's going on globally in the Office of Admissions as we do at each of our check-ins. So we are in the midst of preparing for the February California bar exam, the 2025. That exam scheduled to occur on February 25th and 26th. We are preparing applicants with significant amount of communication. We're sending out weekly email blasts like we do for every exam administration 6 weeks leading to the exam. We are updating our FAQs, and on January 21st, so next Tuesday, we're hosting a Q&A for examinees to answer questions that they might have about the upcoming exam. Just to remind everybody, we are using a new exam vendor and moving into this hybrid exam administration where we allow multiple modalities. People could test at an in-person vendor-run test center or test remotely. So given this change, we're really trying to spread our communication as much as possible. We're also preparing to open the July bar exam application on March 1st, as well as our June first-year law student exam. So that's what's happening behind the scenes as well. And we conducted an experiment, the first phase of this California bar exam experiment in November of 2024. We're in the process of preparing results so that applicants who qualify as for this grading incentive adjustment that we that was part of that experiment will be informed by the end of the month about their standing and performance during that experiment. And just to remind everybody, this was an experiment where we tested some of the multiple choice questions as well as the new platform that will be used for the February 2025 exam. We collected very useful information about the questions and their performance, and about the system itself. And we've applied information that we gathered from that in our communications. And so that is a little of what's happening right now in the admissions world. Any questions related to that before we move on to the next item? Okay.
Very good, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. That's great. That concludes the staff report. So now we can move on to the general business, the discussion of and the action on approval of the CBLS letter addressing the California Bar, the State Bar of California Board of Trustees discussion of 5-year sunset review of the non-statutory sub-entities. And I'll turn this over to George and Damon are members.
Damon has, well, took the lead in preparing a proposed letter, and I made some changes to that, and that was posted with the materials. And that reflects some of the points that we went through. Michael also, Chairman Michael Lee also prepared a draft letter, which I thought was very good. It cited a lot of materials and some of the history, but I think most of you probably have not seen that. And I don't know if there's a way to share that
I'm not sure, does that need to be
at this time?
late public comment? Maybe how or we can, I'm not sure how we handle that. Oh, as always, Adrian has a solution.
You're talking about sharing the letter, right? I'm sorry.
Can
This is
you
the letter that
Roll in a little bit, please,
Mhm.
Adrian.
this is the letter that George and I prepared. I believe we were talking about looking at the letter that Michael prepared.
Right, yeah, my internet keeps dropping for some reason. Yeah, Michael prepared a letter. I think most of you haven't seen that. I don't know if we could screen share that, which I can do.
I don't think I received that letter.
Okay, I'm gonna am I able to share that?
This I only sent to Janelle, but it was very late, so it couldn't make it off of the calendar.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see. Maybe can I forward that to Adrian? Maybe
I
you
just
can-
sent that to Adrian now.
Oh, you did? Oh, thank you, Janelle.
Let me. You think we're gonna make edits? I'll have to convert it to Word if we will.
Oh, do you want me to convert it to Word? It may be easier if I do it.
Oh, you already have it? Yeah, if you have a Word doc, can you send it to me?
I mean, the typesetting will kind of go crazy, but that's okay.
Okay.
I don't know why I typed it in this odd software. Just a moment. The love of computers. One moment off. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. We'll have to adjust the typesetting, but great. That's
Got it. Let me open it up.
Yep.
So this is new for most members then.
Yes, I don't think anyone has seen this besides maybe Janelle and perhaps George.
Okay.
I could give a brief summary of a thought on this, if that's helpful.
Go ahead.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, George and Damon, for taking the first heavy lift on this, because that was hard to start. On the blank page, the tyranny of the blank page. I just went a little bit of a different way to dig into the history of our board, and the direction of how things are going. And essentially what the letter introduces is that actually the decision being considered is essentially not a new concept. This has been a long time considered issue with how the bar should effectively run its statutory and non-statutory sub-entities. And in 2018, and this is helpful, and there's a link in the letter for this, there was a very, very, very lengthy, thorough, well-researched report on how to reform and modify the non-statutory sub-entities. And the bar that we are on, or the board that we are serving now, is configured in a way that is the result of those reforms. And essentially the letter tries to make a fairly simple argument that the reforms of 2019 worked. The objectives that they wanted to achieve in 2019 were effective, and that our board is operating as we should. And it makes, first point is, we've been using a board to administer this for roughly 50 years, that we've been doing this a long time. Our board is participatory, democratic, transparent, multi-member. We have a wide range of members, and we have a wide range of viewpoints. We provide effective governance of the program, and then pointed to a few things that we've accomplished. We all got through COVID, and the board and specialization continue to exist. We've made modifications or reviewed modifications of existing specialties, Admiralty, Maritime. We've added privacy. We've harmonized the rules to match the state bar. So essentially, simple arguments that the reforms have worked, and that as we're currently constituted, that will serve the public well. And I essentially leave it at that. Tried to keep it fairly narrow. That was my intent. Naturally, there's probably a lot of that can be improved on this, but that was the thought for trying to draft this.
So we have two letters, Michael's version and the one prepared by myself and Damon. And my feeling is that we should see if we can merge the two letters or combine some of the points. Michael provides a very good letter and outline of many of the things that we were saying. And I think that if we can, everyone has a copy of the letter that Damon and I prepared.
Is there a recommendation of which one we want to keep and then update so that I can share that one?
Well, my feeling is that we should take some points from the letter that Damon and I drafted and then include some of those in Michael's letter.
Got it. Okay, I'll leave Michael's up for now then.
I would agree with that. I like the history and background, a little more introductory, more introduction than what we had done. But I do think there are a couple points in our letter that I would prefer not to leave out. So I would agree with you there, George.
I think that's a good idea. It's your public comment wanted a little bit livelier letter, and your mind's a little bit light touch on it. So I think, and there are a few points in here in the numbered paragraphs of George and Damon's letter that are omitted that I think we can add in easily to we're doing it on my draft. It may be easier. That template is put it in there. That would work. Also, I think those were just accomplishments that were off the top of my head that have occurred from 2019 to now. Anything else that's missing, which there may be a fair number of things missing, that would be probably helpful as well.
So one of the areas that I'd like to include is section 3 of our letter, titled CPLS members have self-interest in maintaining the highest standards. Because I think a composition of a board, the value in that is we're able to tie all the pieces together. Rather than spread those duties out. A board has a big picture view of things. And as we know, one thing can impact another. And I think having that big picture type of view, as well as being specialists ourselves, allows a board to be in the best position to oversee the program versus it being broken up into different entities. And I think that prevents inconsistency in the program. And here we also have a group of volunteer board members whose only interest is furthering and bettering this program. And I certainly think there's value in that. And not just for attorneys, but also the public. There was Ms. Wilson did explain that the bar's focus is a regulatory function, and that there's a question of whether this is a trade group type organization or regulatory. And I think it's both. We go over the policies of legal specialization. We perform activities such as reviewing discipline issues. So I think it's actually a combination of those things, and having a board itself has unique value.
Were you thinking of adding that section 3?
Section 3.
Yeah. Where in Michael's letter were you thinking of adding?
I think at page 3 at the bottom, which begins with impartial, consistent, and fair decision making. And I think following the first paragraph of that.
I was actually even considering maybe to put that ahead of that section. That section that CBLS continues to provide the effective governance, that order of things is drawn from the 2018 report. So those are like a laundry list of things that they put in that report. So those what is it? 6 elements are the elements from that thing. So maybe we could put the paragraph the CBLS paragraph above this at the top of page 3 as part of the CBLS's participatory democratic, and we could even have a bolded header you know,
Mhm.
just like it had in the other one,
Mhm.
or it had in the first, the
Mhm.
sample letter.
Well, I think that makes sense to put it
So
there.
above this section right here.
Yeah, so knock that one down, we'll, perfect, yeah, actually, yeah, just almost like the way the copy paste puts it in, yeah. Apologies, Adrian, this was converted from another software. That's why the formatting is horrible.
Oops, sorry, I didn't see this was another. No,
And
it's
it
no
has
problem at all.
footnotes, so this couldn't possibly be more difficult.
No problem at all.
We don't make it easy for you guys. I suppose I could have done it like the old days and sent it to you in Word Perfect and seen how well that converted.
So this is the old section 3.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks good. And we could probably, that at CBLS there, we could probably move the indent to the far left. And
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
there we go. Yeah, I like that. Looks good. How does? What do you think, George? David?
I like that. I think it looks good.
Great. We probably have a few other paragraphs we may want to add in too.
Damon, do you have thoughts on what you would like to add or what you would move?
That was the first one that I also thought, so I agree with you there. If we can find a way, if you all think it's important, I think I understand what Leah Wilson was saying, that the $6,000 of direct spending allocated for our board is just a small part of what actually goes into it all. But I do think it's important to see that smaller direct number in comparison to the actual income that specialists are bringing into the bar. So really, I think I don't even know if that needs to be a separate section, but is what I'm talking about is it's really just 2 lines in our letter, three sentences in our letter.
I agree that that needs to be included because the whole focus of this sunsetting appears to be financial. So if we're not bringing that in, I think that has to be primary. And frankly, it should have a pretty prominent role within the correspondence.
Can you remind me what section that was from the original letter?
Let's see. It's section 6.
6. Thank you.
And a thought I think for section 6, and we can redraft now, I think to phrase it appropriately, or maybe I think this is the issue, is that as a fee-based program, the board provides a service in monitoring the appropriate balance between the use of our fee-based program funds and provision of the funds to the general fund of the bar. You know, we're not a statutory independent dedicated fund, but we can provide input for balance. So it's not, these aren't dedicated to us, but we can provide input on balance. Something I think to that direction would be helpful.
And where in your letter?
This was 6. Let's see where. Okay, where should maybe we could put this. Maybe this could go on. I think it's on the page up a bit. Maybe above the paragraph 3 that it could either go maybe above or below the paragraph 3 that we just added, the self-interest paragraph. Oh yes, this part I think here. Oh, whoops. If you
Sorry, hold on. Oh yeah, sorry.
We have that paragraph twice. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
remove that probably. Great. And then up a bit. We actually, yeah, up, maybe right below the goal we just added. Above. Sorry, Peter. I think up to the next page. Yeah. I think right after where we added the last portion. Yeah. So
Oh,
so
here?
the ELS continues. I think we can knock that down one.
Gotcha.
And perhaps we could write something. I guess this. Should I put it in questions? How could I type it to you?
So Michael, how might you reword that?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna try to on the
Oh,
fly. Oh, I used to do appeals, and I realized why I don't do that anymore. We used to sit and do this for hours, so I don't do that work anymore. Okay,
Hmm.
let's.
Can I just ask before it runs out of my head, have we created a nexus between the willingness of people to be legal specialists if they're not being regulated by specialists to some extent?
You know, I think in the letter there isn't a strong portion on this, but this was actually raised. So actually, the exercise that we're going through, which is kind of interesting, when they did the 2017 task force report and everything, this is exactly what the CBLS did back then. And one of the things that they raised was how likely are people going to want to be specialists if there isn't the board, that people will lose interest in this. And there was actually some findings in that 2017 report that some other state bars that don't use a board, they just delegate it to the ABA or other agencies. They don't have very large specialist attorneys. It's not a big thing because there's some like really prestigious certifying agencies, and then there's like those crazy things that email you, those MCLEs, and so people can't tell the difference, so they just say it's not reliable, and people don't bother to do it. So I think that is something that has there actually is, in a sense, findings of fact on this that appear in the 2017 report and was raised before, that the board has a imprimatur of officiality and quality that people respect.
You said you're working on something, right, Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not turning out so great. We're doing what we can. We'll see. Let's see. feel free to move on to other things, but some other additions that may be a little bit easier. I think especially to Dana's point, which actually maybe I can just might be easier, about adding an item. See, it's page 30. Page 41. Let's see, hey, that one's the easier one. Do we have a chat function or maybe I could put into questions? Sure, I could share this with you all.
Unfortunately, the chat feature is disabled for all webinar meetings.
Oh, sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Also, I'll be sending an email to all members of Michael's letter so that you guys can have that in front of you to take a look at it.
Essentially, oops, this is done. The point raised by Dana was a little bit easier had something to the effect of CBLS provides reputational reliability, you know, of its program for the public and attorneys, and something gleaned from the other report, but I'm not sure how to share it. Oh, here, I'll just send it to Adrian, and then you can copy paste it in, and then we can.
Please.
Also, that letter was sent to all members. You should be receiving that then.
There's a quick draft up of thought for Dana. The other point, I'm a little bit cautious because I don't want to be factually incorrect as to the fee issue, because I have not researched it. So I after I have some thoughts on how it operates, but I'm not quite certain on that one. So
Where did you want this new section added?
let's put this one. Maybe we put this above what we just added. Feel free to tear this one up here, because I literally threw this together. Though this was mentioned, the first sentence was mentioned in the 2017 the comments that was made previously by the board.
I mean, is it too much to simply state that there's a concern that without the oversight by specialists through the CBLS, there could be less desire to seek legal specialization going forward?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The other one, there was a sentence out of it that said, if California ceases the program, third-party providers could weaken their standards.
Yeah.
Because you could just offer anything. So, yeah, there's concern that,
I missed the latter half of that data.
Oh, there's a concern there's less oversight by the specialist, by that ongoing desire to speak specialization will decline.
And then I think Michael also wanted to add that partner agencies standards would reduce, something to that effect, right, Michael?
Well, I think this was perhaps a consideration. This was a input and response from CBLS back in 2000, I think 18 or 17, and there was a concern that because the CBLS acts as a gatekeeper for third-party providers, they have to maintain high standards to be approved by the board. So that has historically worked. So perhaps let's see. I would say further, if there is less oversight by the CBLS, private specialization providers could weaken their standards. I'll just maybe leave it at that.
Part of me wants to add in language that says, i.e. pay to play programs, which a lot of these specializations kind of fall into. The non state bar and or ABA regulated ones.
You said pay to play.
Well, I would just say pay to play organizations. I don't know what the proper term is. If somebody else has some idea.
And maybe we could after standards, the S, remove the period and use an M dash and then lowercase. Yeah, there we go. And it auto corrected the M dash. Perfect. Okay. Great. All right. The only thought was regarding that user fee issue, and I'm a little bit hesitant to mention that because I would like to avoid being factually incorrect about that. So,
Michael, if we just add direct costs to the 6,000,
sure.
would that at least assuage some of the concern? Because I think that's what she was getting at, right? Is that 6,000 versus, what they're trying to do, which is to be, eliminate one full-time employee. Mm-hmm. Or they have costs akin to a full-time employee.
That's what I picked up from Leah Wilson also, was that this is just the $6,000 is the direct budget for the board, but there are other indirect costs. And then ultimately that if the board was sunsetted, those indirect costs might go down, or what the idea is that they would go down. But I don't think we're saying anything inaccurate in our statements.
Maybe we could do this. We can listen to the proposal and see here is that on this specialist fees produce this amount. We could eliminate the dash, use that, kick down the next hit return there, bold that, and for legal specialists, instead of citing the number, would we be happy with legal or specialist fees produce significant revenue rather than getting into the dollar figure, because which may not we might not have the right number.
Well, I feel like we could say this amounts to an assumed this much amount in revenue, I mean, I think you're right that we can't put a specific number, but I think if we say we would assumedly they're bringing in something akin to that would not be inappropriate to say.
Yes, perhaps we could just for the header say specialist fees produce significant revenue, and the CBLS budget is minimal. And then as Dana mentioned, that amounts to an estimated gross amount of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Maybe we could have a last line is that the CBLS provides valuable guidance over the use of its program fees. We just leave it at that. We don't have to get into authority as to any of this. We just guidance is enough.
Is there some benefit? I know Ms. Wilson used it kind of as a reason why it made sense to eliminate, but I almost felt her comment about, well, these costs the revenue goes to other areas was actually, to me, another reason to keep it, because the cost, even for a full-time employee, let's say we're talking 70 to 120,000, is de minimis in compared to the revenue that's assumedly being brought in. I don't know, the math was not mathing for me, if you will.
Yeah.
Great.
George, I got some comments. What were you thinking about that?
Pardon?
Sorry, I got some comments from George.
Adrian, the paragraph I sent you was for a different area in the
Okay.
letter. And so it's an estimate.
Do we think that we're done with this area? Chair, if it's okay, I think that we're done with this area. Can I go to George's comments?
Or you can hear me. Yeah, that sounds great.
Got it. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I sent Adrian a comment that I wanted to change role definition on page 3.
Add to this or replace this paragraph?
I'm gonna propose replacing it because I would like to show that it's I don't like saying narrow focus. I wanted to demonstrate how it aligns with the State Bar's current mission.
Ooh, why did I do that?
Sorry.
Yes, here we go.
Okay.
So this is the language that I propose.
And when you say board here, are you referring to the CBLS?
Yeah, maybe we should change it to CBLS.
Yep. Looks good on my glance.
Any thoughts on that?
Looks great to me.
I like that better.
So Adrian, it sounds like we're good with that.
Okay.
Then once we settle the content, someone go through and kind of handle the formatting of, just kind of clean up the typography of everything that needs to be done. I could do that. Or,
Maybe once it's done,
Yeah.
and it's voted on to approve, maybe add on, delegating it to yourself or someone else to finalize.
or I mean, I suppose we could just do it live. It only takes like 5 minutes.
That too.
Yeah, maybe just send it back in Word, and I'll just, Any of the, also, anything else from the original letter that we would like to add in that perhaps wasn't covered? So we got paragraph 3 and we got paragraph 6 included. Plus we added a paragraph that we generated just now.
I'm interested in hearing from other people. Would it be helpful to include the last 2 paragraphs where we discuss being committed to developing additional specialization areas and that we are uniquely situated to expand? Is that something we want to include in the new letter? Is it covered? I didn't necessarily see it covered. Parts of it are, and that we have approved additional areas.
I don't think it was covered thoroughly. Point 7, I think, was just obliquely mentioned, that we approved the privacy law, but the other areas, I think, were not mentioned.
I think it's helpful to include that. I think it's helpful.
Can we combine those 2 paragraphs and say that we are committed to developing additional specialization areas and uniquely situated to attract additional specialists?
I think combining the 2 would be good, and then I think we should, omit any mention of any specific person or program.
Yeah.
Just remove that. But I think the ongoing commitment to, which is the instruction that we had after the task force review, to add specialization areas, and I think the conclusion is the CBLS is best suited to do this. Is I think why we all joined. So I think that's why that makes good sense. Perhaps that can go before the conclusion. It's kind of a positive send up. We can reach the conclusion. We have what we accomplished, and then we start with a new bold header about what we want to do going forward. And perhaps we could use the paragraph 7 as the template, and then combine into that paragraph.
And I agree with taking the first 2 sentences of that out, beginning with a recent suggestion.
I'm sorry, which sentence was that to take out?
Oh, Under CBLS is uniquely situated. The first few sentences where it begins a recent suggestion, and to where it says similarly and removing similarly, and then just making it the CBLS. Maybe we should remove non-attorney staff are not able to make expansions. I mean, they could.
And maybe we could add some explanatory language like this, just like we have in the header. Instead of could, the CBLS is best suited, or oh, sorry, Adrian. In the, a little bit below that, yes. So in the non-bold part, yeah, the CBLS is best situated to identify there's for a for maybe for instead of a certificate, is it for additional specialization, specializations and specialists? I think that's what we're saying, actually, not certificate, right? Yeah, new specialty areas. Sure.
Yeah, I think that makes that, at least in my opinion, brings over the most important information from the original letter, puts it into the better format of the second letter. I'm happy with the content.
Well, maybe one thought, sorry to go on with this, Adrian. What about for the paragraph above, below the bold, the current CBLS is committed to developing additional specialty areas in order and this is where I think we need to add something in order to meet the needs and demand of the public, which was requested of us post 2019. So the specialty areas reflected what was needed in the legal market.
And then I missed the last part.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Perfect.
And then right below that, I think it should be CBLS at the December 2024 meeting rather than last meeting, because this is going to be our last meeting before we say, yeah.
Internal citation problem there.
Just at in December 2024 or at the December 2024 meeting.
oh, sorry.
So far, so good. All right, any thoughts for additions before we move towards just removing the typographical gremlins in there?
I
I have
just
no,
sent a note. I'm
Oh, yes.
sorry.
oh, you got it.
Okay, I just sent a note to Janelle if, and it just says, reads at possibly concerns for misconduct from, I think it was our December 23 meeting of test penalties regarding section number 3, and that will be strongly watched and or monitored by the newly assigned board and or staffer. I sent that email to Janelle.
Oh, okay. And is that to add to what section or
It would definitely go under concerns.
oh,
Yeah, concerns. Or yeah. I think that was one of the first meetings that I attended, and that was what we were dealing with at that particular time. Yeah, so under governance, under above role definition, and under the title, continues to provide effective governance of the legal specialization program. That concern may go under that tab.
Can you send that to me, Janelle?
I just sent that to you.
I don't know how we're gonna or how you're gonna want to word this, but
maybe for that, maybe instead of that section, do you want to put that here? Let me. We could even put it in that impartial, consistent, and fair decision making. That we could rephrase that a little bit because actually I remember that meeting. I thought we did a pretty good job on handling that fairly. So you know, we could even say, you know, an example of your situation, you know, an example of the board's activity. Or let's see, try to talk type doesn't work. How about this? Just one moment. Oh yeah. Yeah, how about as an example of CBLS's you know, fair decision making. Was addressing test administration concerns that occurred at the December 2023 meeting. You know, the CBLS is well suited to, you know, monitor and fairly address these concerns. Though we used fair twice, but you know, we'll clean it up on that. Okay.
Say that last sentence again.
Oh, yes, let's see. Well, actually, sorry. Here, let me read. Let me, um, sent you a thought there, Adrian. Maybe we could use that. I think that's the thought of member Bennett, and she can help us reformulate. Hey, any additional thoughts? We start to approach the end of our time. I think we are, as most things, more or less complete. So, if that is acceptable, perhaps if you want Adrian to just shoot it over to me, and I'll just kind of play with the typesetting over the last just 3 minutes here, and then I guess maybe PDF it, or I'll send it in PDF and Word to you, and then perhaps we could have that be the draft. Unless you want to handle the typesetting part, whatever you want to do.
Either, whatever.
I can give it a go.
Okay. I just sent it. Maybe take a minute.
Super.
We can't hear you, Adrian, if you're talking.
Oh, I sorry. I just sent it. It might take a minute.
Oops. Sorry, my speakers are off. Are we ready to make a motion on this?
Michael's gonna finalize it real fast.
Sure, let me just, I haven't got it yet. It's coming a long way. So, hello, Jean, welcome.
You.
I don't quite see it, Adrian. Oh, weird.
In my outbox. Let me send it one more time.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Let me just. Oh, and just one thought. Let's see. How do we want to do the, sure, I mean, we could just remove, I guess, this, essentially the closing and the by portion. Do we want to by? I suppose we could have the names of the members who participated today. Should we do that? Who are willing to agree to the letter? Does that sound good?
Sounds fun to me.
Sure. Stop the share screen. I think it's slowing down words. Sorry, just a moment. I'll put it back up in one moment. There's that portion, the byline here. We have that section. And then for our, just didn't make any changes except the typographical adjustments there. And then the closing, how do we sign this? Is this, do we sign it? Do we just maybe just remove this?
I think just remove it.
Yeah, and we just end it right there. Or have some grand rhetorical flourish, like we remain your board of legal specialization. Probably leave it at this. Fine. Does that sound good? All right. Let me. I will send this back to Adrian, and have a PDF without the visible track changes, and we can use that.
So we are ready to vote on the final draft to the CBLS, to the Board of Trustees.
Yes, I think we are there.
If this is going to be the final draft, there was just one typo.
Oh, yes.
That I saw. It was on the previously page 2 under CBLS is a participatory, democratic, and transparent. The second paragraph, the second sentence says the current process is democratic and that a wide range of applicants. It says and apply. I think it should just be apply. The N should be taken out.
Oh, yes, the in applied, get rid of the in, correct? Okay,
Yes,
great.
that's it.
Scan again. All right. Okay, the finals are sent back over to you, Adrian.
Once I get it, I'll show it one more time, and then whenever you're ready, you'll be able to call for a motion.
Great. All right, as we have all gone through, we have collected two proposed versions of a public comment to submit to the Board of Trustees. We have collectively and collaboratively edited that. Presented here is the result of those edits. Therefore, is there a call for, is there a motion to approve the form of this public comment and to thereafter submit it to the Board of Trustees via their public comment process?
I'll make a motion to do so.
Yes, Member Jenkins moves to approve the letter and to submit it to the Board of Trustees via public comment. Is there a second?
Sorry, can I interrupt? I think we need to share the motion.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, we should probably draft it too.
Because the motion, I think, references the letter that might be specific to the letter that was attached to the agenda item. And with the current revision, we just need to make sure it reflects appropriately.
So this is the original motion? Oops.
Could we say approves the, should we say you revised or your January 17th revised version of the letter, something like that? Oh, yeah, would this be sufficient? Your thoughts, Amy, or should we expand it a little bit more to be clear?
Well, I think it is, as long as this is that letter, but it sounds like, Michael, there is, that you might be continuing to add to the letter after the meeting today.
Oh, I don't think so. I think we're. I
Okay,
think,
this is the final
I
product.
think this is it.
Okay, yeah.
Really, when we went through this painful process of revising the letter, I don't think any of us want to see this thing again.
Well, it wasn't that painful, but you got it done. So yes, if that is the case, then I think this language should suffice.
Okay, yes, I think we have the motion up. Member Jenkins, would you like to continue to move on the presented motion that we have here?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Anik Banerjee from OGC here. Just a suggested little tweak to the resolution that that the California Board of Specialization approves the California Board of Legal Specialization letter as revised at their January 17th, etc. meeting.
Great. Any?
I'll renew it with those changes. Yes.
You're not going to take a strong principle stand against the as?
Maybe half an hour ago I would have, but lunch is approaching.
Very good. Yes, we have a motion from Member Jenkins, and do we have a second?
So seconded.
Yes, Member Ruckert has seconded, so maybe we begin a roll call vote.
Alano, Bennett,
Approve.
Jenkins,
Approve.
Lee,
Approve.
McGlory, Ruckert,
Approve.
Surmitis.
Approve.
With 5 yeses and 0 nos, the motion passes.
Very good. And then just to procedurally, Adrian or Janelle, will you as staff just email that to them on our behalf? We don't have to do anything, do we? Okay, great. So seeing the nod from Janelle, I'm not having to do anything. I'm going to take that. So very good. With that, I believe that ends our open session items. There are no, unless there's any thoughts by anyone else, but there are no closed session items of business. So our next meeting is scheduled electronically via Zoom on March 21st at 10 a.m. to noon. I'd like to thank all of you and especially thank staff. I know this revising a letter with many people is about as painful as going fishing for a long time, but we powered through it, and I greatly appreciate that to all of you. So with that, the time is 11:57, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks everyone for all your help on that letter.
Thank you.
Thank you.